Well, wage negotiations between public sector unions and the government seem to have hit a deadlock. Unions say the government has created a number of obstacles to delay the process. Joining us now to discuss this is Economist Lumkile Mondi. Thank you so much, Lumkile, for your time today. These talks have been ongoing since October of last year. Do we know what the sticking points are?
Remember, if some work that's been done by some researchers, Bredenbach and Rousseau, has shown that between 2005 and 2012, there was a huge jump in terms of, firstly, of employment, but also of remuneration. And therefore, the cost from a government side has accelerated tremendously. And given the tight position in the balance sheet of the government, as we have seen with the VAT being increased and the state really cutting down on a number of areas, it indicates that the state cannot afford really this increase that we've seen under Zuma government. Therefore, the pressure on the state is to cut as much as you can. And I think that's why the state is pussyfooting around the issue rather than coming to a conclusion of the deal.
Now, pussyfooting or coming to a conclusion, what sort of conclusion could they come to? Well, given what you were saying as well, the VAT is up.
Yes.
At the moment, that's going to feed into inflation. The fuel levy is up. That's going to feed into inflation. I'm sure workers are watching that and are penciling that into their demands.
Justifiably so. However, we must also look from the position of the taxpayer, whereby productivity and the service levels to the South African public have declined tremendously. So therefore, we have a bloated public service, whereby production levels are very, very low. If you look what the Reserve Bank has been saying around productivity. So here what we see is that the state has got no option to look seriously, negotiate hard, but also look at ways of cutting costs, one of which may include retrenchments. So I think going forward, we're going to see the state really fighting very, very hard and has to retrench some of these employees, because to move within 10 years from 1.2 million public service employees to about 1.6 today, when productivity levels have not grown at all, and we continue seeing service delivery issues, whether it's DMR licenses from mining sector and various areas in land reform, where land reform in South Africa to restitution has stalled, indicating to us that there's so much going on around these workers, and the state has to really put pressure on some form of negotiation whereby salary increases are cut down tremendously. At the same time, look at number cutting.
Now, we're going to talk about the likelihood of potential retrenchments in this case, but the unions are accusing the state of negotiating in bad faith. They had asked for CPI plus 3% for lower level employees and CPI plus 2% for mid-level employees, but the offer is an increase of 5.5%. And the concern was that potentially the negotiators do not have a mandate from the minister. What's the history of the public sector bargaining council actually going in there and negotiating in bad faith?
Well, in fact, now, because of the regime change, remember, under Zuma government, there's been a lot of patronage networks embedded there. So it was very easy to have a public sector support the status quo at the time. Now, we're expecting everyone to really tighten the belts. So the mandate, I think, the public service administration has is a very tight one. And I think given also the fact that it's been easier for the unions to have about 9% increases under Zuma government, now everyone has to look at it. So I think the challenge really for the negotiators of government is what message can they send to these workers, but more importantly is whether, given the medium-term budget framework that we do have, whether workers can align themselves to those requirements if we're going to cut some of the interest costs that the government is incurring due to high levels of debt, and the fact that for us to reduce that, we need to cut down on remuneration.
If there is a strike, there is no indication that we are there yet, but if there is a strike, what impact would that have?
Enormous impact. Remember that the new president is under pressure for him to ensure stability going to an election next day, because next day is an election. So he cannot go there with a public service that is divided, because they need those numbers. Remember that the ANC and how are allies via COSATU. Yeah. So that will have a huge impact on the ANC. But more importantly also, in terms of really ensuring that the Ramaphosa president is not being seen as right-wing, etc. He needs also to be seen to be delivering somehow. I don't know when you've got a tight budget, how you seem to be delivering. So we'll watch the space and hope that somehow, somewhere, there's an agreement. However, the agreement that we want as South Africans is an agreement that is at least inflation or lower than inflation, but also addressing the remuneration challenges in the public sector, which remain very, very high in terms of the service that is rendered to us.
All right, we'll leave it there. Thanks for your time today, Economist Lumkile Mondi.